Oh my god, y'all, this book is crazy.
Good morning. Hello, it's Saturday. It is actually technically the second day of Summerween, but you know, I had a very unexpected day yesterday in trying to just get back into the swing of things, and any reading I was doing was dedicated purely to Harrow the Ninth because that's what I was in the mood for. Already, we are off to a solid start. However, now it's Saturday, and guess what? We're officially doing like final touches at my new house for the master bedroom, so I can set up my bed officially today. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and then start moving over there as we go. Since we're going to be doing a bunch of that sort of stuff today, I figure perfect time for an audiobook. So I think I'm going to start out with The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. I got it right this time, which is like this story about a woman who is listening to a podcast and she hears about an unsolved murder, and I believe it's like somebody she knew, or the podcast host is somebody she knew. Somehow she gets in touch with the podcast host and they start to investigate this, and apparently it is revolving around a cult that our main character actually escaped, I believe. I've heard a lot of positive things about it, which is why I want to read it. Also, the cover is just very eye-catching. That's really what it was also. And honestly, that's really all I have to say for right now, but I did want to bring attention to the fact that my t-shirt was perfect for this. It says on Wednesdays we wear black. I'm like, didn't plan that, but it fits the Summerween vibes perfectly. I'm gonna get dressed and then we're gonna get the day started.
Hello friends, I've been painting the store for a hot sec and I am actually here alone now, so I thought I'd give you guys an update because I'm probably about 5 hours into The Last Housewife and I had to take a break. The book is heavy, it's dark, there's a lot of manipulation, a lot of misogyny. It's been a hot minute since I've read a thriller in general, so I don't know if maybe this, did I make a mistake by choosing something so hardcore super quickly? Possibly, but we're already in it, so that's how we're doing. Now I can actually give you a better synopsis. We are following this woman who, her childhood best friend is an investigative journalist for a podcast, and she has started listening to his podcast. And one day he covers a suspicious death of a girl she actually went to college with. And he basically asks that if she listens to the podcast, she reaches out to him. And this is actually the way she finds out about that friend's death. And while some people believe that it was self-inflicted, the journalist friend, Jesse, I want to say his name is, Jesse believes that there was foul play. She ends up traveling to her old college town, attempts to try and help the police, and when she realizes that they are of no use and inept, she decides that, okay, I'll reach out to Jesse and he and I will investigate this ourselves. And apparently we're getting some exploration of what happened while they were in college, and that's where we get the sort of cultish element. But sex is very prevalent in this. It is very much an important role in the murders, in the cult. Power imbalance is definitely an important element of it as well, and just on the whole, super uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable to be listening to. Obviously, that's the point. I'm not expecting that was gonna be rainbows and daisies when I went into this. But basically, like I said, I'm realizing, it's been a hot minute since I've read something this messed up. This is definitely up there with Pretty Girls thus far. However, I am really intrigued. They're trying to figure out what happened in the college friend Laurel, I believe her name is, Laurel's life that led her to possibly taking her own life, or somebody to kill her. And they've already investigated a secret sex club. That was weird. I do think on the whole, in terms of like a lot of those topics that are coming up, the author's done a really good job of weaving them in and allowing for discussions around those pieces and really highlighting the importance of being on an equal ground in relationships, feminism on the whole, beauty and how it can affect a person's life in both a positive way and a negative way. All of that, very interesting. I think the author's really done a great job of like bringing these topics up and then including them into the story in a way that like flows very, very well. This is the problem when I try to do something while I'm talking. I forget what sections I've actually gone over, and it's sort of hard to see in this light. There is also just this like very uncomfortable element in regards to our main character with her husband. Once upon a time, she and her husband were on fairly equal playing ground. Excuse me. She lives in a area of Dallas that I do know is a very, very nice area. Very highbrow, lots of rich people. Well, her husband is an investor, so he's super rich. Once upon a time, she was a journalist herself for some online publication. I don't remember what it was called, but she has since taken a sabbatical to try and write a novel. Hasn't really had any luck with that, and because of it, she's a lot more aware of the economic discrepancy between the two of them. It's bringing up interesting discussions, but like the husband himself isn't really that prevalent in the story, so like I don't understand the necessity of really even having that talked about.
Hello, beautiful peoples. So it's Monday. Hi, I haven't spoken to you since Saturday, and actually, my update on Saturday got interrupted, unfortunately. I had a fairly busy Sunday. Josh and I went to a play with his family, which was a ton of fun. It was a popcorn thrower comedy, so you actively are encouraged to throw popcorn at the characters on stage, particularly if they're a bad character. This was probably one of the craziest ones we've ever gone to. There's popcorn everywhere. It looked like it snowed when we were leaving. It was insane. A lot of fun though, but because of that, when we finally left, I was like super drained. We went back to the new house and just lazed around for a little bit. Gotta come back home. Obviously, you can see I'm still at my parents' house. Although we have officially set up the master bedroom set, nothing else is really over there. So like when we went to stay over there, it was basically like a night away. I had to pack a bag and everything. However, I'm hoping to start moving things over this week. Though, because I'm still catching up on filming things, that's not happening just yet. However, in terms of updates for you guys, I have been reading some more into The Last Housewife, and unfortunately I'm starting to have some mixed feelings. I think there are certain themes in this book that the author is handling in a really interesting way, particularly like feminism and victimhood, gender essentialism, and just like critiques of that on the whole is definitely included in the way manipulation is done. But unfortunately, I'm starting to really poke holes in a lot of logic that's going on in this story. I'm a little more than halfway in, and I'm actually starting to realize a lot of things revolving around the investigation just seem to be happening due to pure coincidence and conveniences. That sort of feels like lazy writing, in my opinion. I continue to think the fact that 𝗖cie is married is completely unnecessary. Now she finally has spoken with her husband. Understandably, he was kind of ticked off because she went to New York City, didn't really say anything to him, and then wasn't answering any of his calls. Honestly, I'd be pretty pissed off if my partner did that too. And so shortly after this phone conversation starts, she just starts twisting her entire relationship to showcase it as this negative thing that is a result of 𝗖cie not having dealt with her trauma from being involved in this cult when she was younger. I definitely think she does need to be in therapy. Oh my God, do I think that. But like what was being showcased in her relationship with her husband felt like a stretch. And then there's this romantic tension between 𝗖cie and Jamie, her childhood friend, that I don't think is necessary at all. And given the fact that that's happening, I'm really wondering like what was the necessity of having 𝗖cie be married anyway? I don't get it. I don't get it. So I'm still reading it. I am still having to take breaks. I also have just officially started jumping around whenever, unfortunately, we hit a scene because, yeah, no, I don't really want to listen to that. If I could, I would probably pick up a romance book to read at the same time to maybe counteract some of the terrible feelings I'm getting with this book. But no, I'm already in the middle of another book right now, which is 𝗖mě the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I don't have a copy of this right now because my friend is sending me hers, so it's on its way. I've been reading this on my phone though, and so because of that, this will actually complete the prompt of reading a book in the dark. Perfect. This is the second book in the Locked Tomb series. The first one is Gideon the Ninth, which I absolutely loved. A wild time. I was really confused in Gideon, and now in 𝗖mě, I'm super confused, but for very different reasons, and I can't explain anything of it to you. This is a wild time. It's so funky. Some of the chapters are told in second person perspective, which is really unusual. Not something I don't think I've read anything that has that before. I do have a theory for why it's being told that way. I need to talk that out with my friend Molly to figure out if I might be correct. There's also like a countdown for certain chapters to an event that's going to take place, and like that does build a lot of suspense. However, I have no idea at this point how we're possibly going to reach that event. I can't wait though. When we started Gideon, I had no idea if I could ever like 𝗖mě because she was the freaking worst. She was such a bitch. But by this point, she is a totally hot mess goth dork, and I love her. I'm rooting for her. I really want her to put things together to figure out what's going on. It's a wild time. Like, I can't decide if this is like a fantastical mystery or not, because it sort of is, but there's a lot of political scheming going on, and then there's like a war that's impending, and we have very little knowledge of it. It is crazy, but I'm having a great time. I actually hit Act 3 earlier today. I don't know how far in that means I am. I think I'm like around 200 pages, so making good progress. Hey y'all, so it's Wednesday and I have a lot to talk to y'all about. First off, I have made a fair bit of progress into 𝗖mě the Ninth. At this point, I just hit chapter 30 a little bit earlier today and I'm loving it. It's so confusing. It's still super wild. I feel like I'm having the exact same experience reading this that I was Gideon, which is I'm very slowly putting the pieces together, but even though by this point in Gideon, I felt like I kind of finally had a hold of everything that was happening, I still don't really have that with 𝗖mě. I'm very impressed with the fact that I've come to care about 𝗖mě so much. The characters we have also been introduced to in 𝗖mě alone, I wouldn't say I'm fond of them, but I'm intrigued by them. They have very interesting lives, and I love learning little tidbits about them and want to see more of those. And I think that's something that Muir has really done fantastically with these books, is that she gives you just enough about the characters to really showcase the depth of them, all these little idiosyncrasies, these small actions they'll take, one-off lines that they'll say, but really they showcase so much depth of the character. All of those things allow us to explore further into these characters that Muir clearly has fully fleshed out. We're just barely scraping the surface and slowly learning more and more and more, and I love that. I love her character work. It is just fantastic. There was also this one scene that happened yesterday and was so incredibly insane. It was amazingly hardcore. It was so badass. It was terrifying. It was disgusting, but it was awesome. I've literally talked to like everybody in my everyday life about that scene because it was crazy. For anybody who has read this, the soup scene. I'm reading this one on ebook from my library, and I've been working through it and annotating it as I go. I've been making notes and everything, so I'll transfer those over whenever my copy arrives. I can't guarantee this, but I do feel like my annotations for 𝗖mě are a lot more question what the hell moments in comparison to Gideon. I had a few of those there, but I think I have a lot more of them in 𝗖mě. I'm following all of the plot that's happened within this book alone, but then there will be one or two lines that are like possibly linking this to events from the previous book. Those are the things where I'm suddenly like, do I actually understand anything that's happening right now? Reading this on the whole has just been such a wild time. I have a million theories floating around in my head. I think I'm probably like roughly about 55% into the book. Apart from that, I was continuing to read The Last Housewife. I think I actually maybe got like 66% in and decided, you know, I have to DNF this. I wasn't really super engaged with the thriller element. I caved and I did look up one specific scenario that I had a theory on, and I was correct. So I really don't know how shocking this book is gonna be for me. Not to mention, I just felt like every time I was listening to this audiobook, it would just put me in such a bad mood, a really terrible headspace. I don't really have any content warnings that I actively avoid, but SA is one that I do know makes me uncomfortable and can mess with my head, and there's just so much of it in this book. And I don't even really think a lot of the on-page scenes are necessary. I think the author could just as easily gotten her point across by maybe having one and then the rest of them be insinuated. I really don't feel like some of these scenes were actually needed to really be shown on page other than just for shock value, and I don't like that. I don't like the utilization of that for shock value. When I put this down, I still could not stand 𝗖. It seemed like every single time 𝗖 would take another step forward, she was kind of just like stumbling along, happened to talk to the right person who would tell her things. The investigation seemed way too easy, and she's brand new into this little, we're just gonna keep going with cult. She's brand new into this cult, and yet these people are just revealing everything to her, explaining all of this stuff to her. I don't know, I think the fact that she's so new, they'd be a little bit more suspicious before saying all these things. I had a lot of issues with like logic and how the investigation itself was being laid out. I officially decided like, I'm just gonna stop. I give up. Since that one was putting me in such a terrible headspace, I then was like, okay, what's something that would also fit with the Summerween vibes and then would possibly complete one of these prompts that I could actually read via audio. I decided to continue the Solving for Pi series by Penny Reed. I just knew that book was gonna put me in a better mood. So I'm on to the second one, which is Marriage and Murder. This is a spin-off series following Cletus and Jennifer from the third book in the Winston Brothers series, Beard Science. That was my favorite of the Winston Brothers series, so of course I was really excited to start into this series. I did so in June, and I'm very glad I continued right away because I just love these characters. They bring me so much happiness. In this series, we are following Cletus and Jen as they take a new step in their relationship every single time, but along with that, they also end up getting involved into mysteries around their town. Unfortunately, I have realized now that both of these mysteries are elements that were talked about as happening off screen later on in the Winston Brothers series. So I did actually sort of know some of this stuff. It was more in a passive way, whereas now I'm actually watching those events unfold. Thankfully for me, with this one in particular, I don't remember how things wrapped up, which is great. So I am enjoying this, I am invested. Obviously, based on the title, I think you can assume Cletus and Jen are going to be getting married here soon. Where the book starts is actually their engagement party, and unfortunately, that night, Jennifer's terrible estranged father actually ends up getting murdered, and her mother unintentionally ends up implicating herself. So now Cletus and Jen are trying to solve this murder while at the same time clearing Jen's mom's name. Cletus is an evil genius, but in this one, I like that he's actually realizing he's become so wrapped up in his own relationship that he has allowed some of his evil plans to sort of fall by the wayside, and so he's not quite as aware of all of the little things happening around town anymore. Jennifer has grown so much from the character we originally met in her book. I just recently hit a scene where both of them were having assumptions about why the other one was acting how they were, and they finally ended up realizing this and talking things out, clearing the air, and it just felt so incredibly healthy, and I love it. Also nice and spicy, a little bit of smut was tossed in there, which I'm never going to complain about because Penny Reed's stuff is... This one definitely going a lot better for me than The Last Housewife. I'm so glad I picked this up next. Hey gorgeous people, so it is the last day of Summerween. I know this has been a very anticlimactic vlog in that I have not gotten nearly enough read, but I did at least finish a book today. I finished Marriage and Murder. It was absolutely adorable, just as much as I was expecting. I was taken off guard about what happened in regards to the mystery. The more I think about it, I'm not sure that was actually resolved in the book that I was thinking about and talking about yesterday, but I do know elements of that story were told from a different perspective in the other book, so that's kind of interesting. To be fair though, I have seen that Penny Reed can do that in a really strong way where she showcases a scene from like two different people's perspective and show how each of those people perceive the whole events differently, and I had no issues with that. So I liked it. I thought the final conclusion was satisfying. It was still surprising enough, but at the same time it made perfect sense. It was one of those where it's like, I suspected you, but I did not suspect that you did it this way. You get what I'm saying there? Honestly though, on the whole, this one was really more of a romance story that had a side mystery going on with it, in comparison to the first book, which felt more like a mystery with occasional romance elements. This one had a lot more smut in it, a lot more spicy scenes. Jin constantly being like, oh my god, I've become a sex fiend, which is just absolutely hilarious. Cletus being insanely protective also was just the cutest, and I adore the Winston family, and I love how they have come to accept Jin as part of the family as well. That was sort of talked about there at the end, and it almost made me cry. It was so freaking cute. At least I finished one book for Summerween. Otherwise, this would have just been sad. And I continued a series. The sad part is I have no idea when the series is going to continue. Penny Reed has announced that she has 2 more books planned for this series, but she has not announced an official date for either of them yet, and that's really sad. On top of that, I also have made it further into 𝗖cie, and oh my god, y'all, this book is crazy. It's crazy in the way that I'm so confused, and I do think I'm finally starting to put together everything that's going on, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But the events that have been taking place in the last few chapters I've read, those are also just insane. Oh my god. There was one scene last night that literally, like, my jaw dropped. I was so uncomfortable, but at the same time curious as to where this could possibly go. I immediately texted my friend Molly to be like, what the heck is happening? And she just lost it laughing at me this morning. I have so many theories bouncing around in my brain. I'm basically having to tell all of them to her, so if one of them happens to be correct, I can brag about it. She has said I'm asking the right questions and I'm sorta a correct line, but I haven't quite figured it out. And you know, I'm not surprised, because it feels like every time I get a grasp on things, Mira rips the carpet out from underneath me again. And I think I'm actually sort of just coming to enjoy that. I guess I am officially a Locked Tomb fan, because as I understand, that's sort of what the fandom enjoys about these books. They talk about confusion being a whole part of why you like them, and yeah, that's definitely true. We also saw the return of 2 characters I really enjoyed in the first book, and that made me incredibly happy. The way we saw them just brought more questions to my mind, and I wonder, like, is this reinforcing my theory, or is it canceling my theory out because of these events? I gotta know. I gotta know. I honestly, right now, 𝗖cie is probably the one book that I consistently want to read. However, I know I can't pick this up via audio. It is too confusing. I am making too many annotations to do that. So I have to keep trekking through it on my phone. Not happy about it, because I can't just sit around and read. I have too much stuff going on in my everyday life. So on that note, thank you so much for coming to my channel today, guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials, as well as a few ways you can support me, linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!